Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are reviewing Season 1 of Vikings Valhalla, premiering exclusively on Netflix. As a massive fan of all things Vikings, I was really looking forward to Valhalla and seeing how they evolved the story and picked it up further down the line, and especially in seeing how it tried to distance itself from the original show. For the most part, I really enjoyed it. I think that it shares the same merits that Vikings did, and a lot of the stuff that I loved about that show, I loved about Valhalla. But that being said, I think it also suffers from many of the same narrative problems, which I'll get into in a little bit. I think the hardest job that any spin-off has is justifying its existence and setting itself apart. And I think that Vikings Valhalla is yet to find its kind of USP. That means we get more of the same, and I'm not complaining because that means we get epic battles, some fantastic music, some great new characters, and a real sense of medieval scope and scale that I've missed in the television format. I think the show is really well anchored in three new kind of young leads. I've got to say, for me, it was King Canute who stole the show for me. He seems like the most charismatic character.
The coward of London.
And it was him that I was always looking forward to seeing the most, and particularly kind of missed his absence in the back half of the season. One thing I've got to point out is that although the show tries to be more historically accurate than Vikings, it kind of shuns the accuracy of its own kind of legacy, because Leif Erikson is presented to us as the son of Eric the Red, who had that shambolic season 6 arc in Vikings. And that's historically accurate. Harald Hardrada is the great-grandson of Harald Finehair, which he was in real life. But if we remember, Eric the Red and Harald Finehair existed in the same timeline in Vikings. They were around at the same time, they shared scenes together. And Eric and Leif are kind of one generation's different. Harold and Harold are, what's that, 3 or 4? So I wouldn't really think about the generational gap too much in this show, because otherwise the timeline just becomes completely implausible. But what I loved about this show was how it had a real streamlined focus going in. We were introduced to a lot of new characters, but they were all kind of driven towards the same goal. And I think the narrative did a really good job of initially linking them all together and setting them on this shared journey. Because I think that one of the biggest downfalls that Vikings had as a series was spreading itself too thinly over various different plot lines that didn't really interlink and kind of cast our characters off in all different directions, which really counteracted a much tighter narrative that was present in seasons 1, 2 and 3. And again, that's where Valhalla started to lose me a bit, because Freydis goes off on her own journey a couple of episodes in, and again the plot starts to diverge. So while we enter the show with this fantastic tunnel vision streamlined approach that manages to unite all the characters, that narrative tightness then sort of lapses a bit, and characters go off and do their own thing, and the story becomes a bit less engaging because of it. I personally think that the first season of this show should have been a build-up to the St. Brice's Day massacre, and had that as a sort of Red Wedding-esque finale. Because I think if they'd done it like that, there would have been much more emotional engagement going up to that as a season finale and then entering season 2, rather than sort of dismissing it quite quickly in a prologue and then entering onto this whole sort of revenge plot where we don't really have the emotional investment to sort of get behind these Vikings initially. And I think it would have just been a much richer narrative setting to see the friction between kind of Saxons and Danes and the Danelaw and their kind of mutual coexistence but growing dissent. In terms of dramatic and narrative tensions, I think we skipped over what could have been a really, really engaging storyline. But that being said, I really enjoyed what we did get. I thought the first 4 episodes were great, leading up to the Battle of Stamford Bridge. And again, battles is what Vikings does best, and it really flexes its chops again there. Fantastic effort all around there in terms of choreography, you know, VFX, production design. I think everyone did a really good job. And I think that the battle scenes is where Valhalla one-ups Vikings for me. Because while it was fun in Vikings to see our main characters and heroes just kind of hack their way through countless enemies, the heroes in Valhalla have a bit more of a struggle with each soldier. They're not just slicing through nameless henchmen, they're struggling with each opponent. And it adds a level of realism to the fight scenes. You know, particularly with Harold in the season finale, He's sort of fighting 3 guys in a back alley and he's really struggling, he gets wounded. It looks like at some points he might fall. So I think the stunt department really did a good job of grounding the violence even more in this show. The music as well, Trevor Morris delivers another phenomenal score. There were some beautiful vocals, really lending itself to the culture and period, and it's one of the best things about Vikings is its very distinct voice in terms of music and score. So I think like Vikings in the latter stages, Valhalla's biggest problem is splitting up its narrative and kind of making us focus on different characters in different places, because we've seen in the first couple of episodes of this show that when you put all your characters together and establish the tensions and the political intrigues that kind of happen when you put your main characters in a room and kind of follow a shared goal, there's a fluidity to the pace between each scene that just kind of feels more continuous and feels more engrossing to watch as a viewer. Particularly because the narrative that we sort of divide off into follows Freydis and her journey for revenge into becoming a shield maiden and finding her place in Kattegat. And it's familiar territory. She's being set up to be the new Lagertha, but obviously they want to kind of set her apart. And they really do. I really enjoy her performance. I think she's a fantastic character. But the whole sort of presence of Kattegat in this season really was something that I didn't think we needed, actually. Particularly as we got to the season finale and the final battle staged there. We've had so many battles in Kattegat, for the significance of Kattegat. You know, in season 2, Jarl Borg invades. In mid-season 2 we have the fight to take back Kattegat. Then in season 4 we have Lagertha storm Kattegat and take it from Auslog. And then later on in season 4 we have that usurper kind of unite with Harald to try and take it from Lagertha. Then in season 5 the battle is all about Bjorn and Ivar fighting for the rule of Kattegat and things like that. So Kattegat has been such an integral part of the show, and I respect why they probably wanted to keep it there. But then again, as a season finale it felt like a bit of a step back. Whereas the first half of the season felt like it was starting to chart new ground. I personally could have watched a whole season sort of take place in London and take place sort of following this quest from start to finish. I think they could have expanded that to a whole season and it would have been really, really riveting television. It also looks a lot more colourful as a show. It doesn't have that desaturated, more kind of blue-green hue that Vikings did. And I'm not sure if I like that more or less yet. But it doesn't feel like it's got as distinct an aesthetic style. Valhalla is very much a case of we'll see. You know, I'm not completely sold on it yet, but I am very intrigued to see where they decide to take it, because it has a lot of potential. I think all the actors are charismatic, they do a really good job. Again, it thrives in terms of choreographing and shooting the battles in really inventive ways. And it's got a sense of scale that few other shows on television can achieve. So I really hope that it can dig deep and find its central thematic theme, which I think they hint at. It's about this uneasy alliance between Danes who are both Christian and pagan, which is at the forefront of the first few episodes and then somewhat forgotten about. So I think they really could do with bringing that to the fore, because obviously that was a big part of what led to the St. Brice's Day massacre. So I do hope they bring that crisis of identity a bit more to the forefront in the coming seasons. But let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. Please like and subscribe to my channel, comment on the video. But thank you for taking the time to watch, and we will see you next time. Thank you.